Welcome back to another episode of PW. Yeah! The Flash Pro Wrestling Show. I am your host, Chris Flash, and let's talk pro wrestling. On this episode, we're going to be talking about just how important is the Samoan Werewolf, the new enforcer of the Bloodline 2.0, Jacob Fatu, and was Jimmy Uso actually right? So let's talk about it. So first and foremost, we've seen the devastation that Jacob Fatu has made on its wake. And I've been talking about this guy for the longest amount of time, right? Even before I was making videos. And let's just go back and just look at the impact, right? So before Jacob Fatu showed up and he kind of became this, really the MVP of the Bloodline 2.0, Solo Sikoa and the Tongans were really kind of just treading water. A lot of times it appears to me that Jacob can kind of Solo can seem kind of forced in how he does his promos, and considering he's not really being taken seriously in the entire story of the Bloodline, aside from the fact that he wants to call himself the new tribal chief, he hasn't really been able to bring that same type of notoriety to the Bloodline the way Roman did. And we know that Roman stated that the Tongans and Jacob Fatu were not allowed in the Bloodline because they were uncontrollable. He wasn't someone that Roman wasn't able to get them to kind of follow his lead, follow his order. But Solo wasn't worried about all that. All Solo cares about is getting that championship back, right? So we fast forward to SummerSlam and Solo versus Cody Rhodes for the championship, and out comes Roman. And the Tongans get taken out, and Solo gets taken out by Roman, and it's clear that Roman is head and shoulders above everyone in the new Bloodline, right? Jacob gets injured on a splash to Cody Rhodes through a table, allowing Roman to have the interaction with Solo Sikoa without Jacob really being a factor. And they kind of wanted to pace this thing out, right? You don't want to have these two guys lock horns too early. You want to stretch things out and kind of make sure that people are getting their money's worth. And so when Jacob finally steps onto the scene and faces Roman, it's night and day. He drops him completely. First of all, he kicks the man in the face with a walking boot. Like, I guess if you're gonna super kick Roman, it's gonna have to be with a foreign object, right? He does a hip attack to him. I mean, he does his greatest. The only thing he doesn't do, right, is the pop up. No, I guess the pop up springboard moonsault that he does. He wasn't able to do that, but the hip attack, everything, left him laying, allow him to actually hit the shield bomb to Roman through the table a couple weeks ago on SmackDown. And it really got me to wondering, is there really a factor of this new Bloodline without Jacob Fatu? Because it seems like really Jacob does acknowledge Solo, but I don't think Solo really can control Jacob. I don't think Solo really has the ability to even stop Jacob. Jacob seems like one of these guys that just he has a mind of its own. Like if at any moment, right, he could just snap and go against the entire hierarchy of what the Bloodline is, all the way up probably into The Rock. And we know now, where his allegiance lies. There were a lot of rumors saying that, well, Jacob could be, eventually going to turn on Solo and side with Roman, which in this moment doesn't really make a whole lot of sense, right? Because Roman clearly is going against Solo, and Jacob has already acknowledged Solo as his tribal chief. He holds the Ula Fala whenever Solo is not wearing it. He places it on Solo every chance that he can get. He's always verbally saying, "I love you, Solo. I acknowledge you as my tribal chief." So we know that that's not going to happen, at least not in the foreseeable future, right? So the question is, what is it going to take to neutralize Jacob? Because Roman right now has his focus solely on Solo. This is the guy that wears the Ulafala. This is the guy that claims that he's the tribal chief. This is the guy that claims he's going to take my spot. This is the guy I need to take down. But there's also this other guy that is a problem. The Tongans ain't a problem, right? Tama Tonga and the way he's been presented is not a problem. We all know Tonga Loa and the way he's presented isn't a problem, which I'm not entirely sure that's Triple H is doing. I think that's just the way the guy kind of presents himself, right? But Jacob, as soon as he steps on the scene, everything shifts. He's taken out the former tag team champions in DIY. He's the reason, really, why they are tag team champions. He's taken out Cody Rhodes so many different times. He's taken out Kevin Owens. He's taken out Randy Orton. And now he can add Roman Reigns to that list. And we are just really getting started and seeing what this guy is made of. We haven't seen Jacob in any one-on-one matches. We've only seen him in tag team bouts. So what does that mean moving forward? Who is going to be the one to take this guy out? I mean, there's an argument that the Usos could be, kind of possibly neutralize Solo, considering that is their little brother. But I don't know, man. Jacob is an anomaly. He really is. Like, there was a moment where Tama Tonga, and I'm sure everyone noticed it, Tama Tonga had the Ulafala in his hands. And before he actually gave it back to Solo, he paused for a second. Like, wow, this is the power to rule it all. And he gave it back to Solo. But Jacob never did that. And Jacob holds it all the time. He holds the Ulafala for Solo all the time. He's never really shown any type of corruption. Whereas you could see the shift in energy once Roman finally put it back on, even though it was for a split second. And whoever wears the Ulafala typically is said to be the tribal chief. But even without the Ulafala, Solo still attacked Roman. And it was evident that Roman had Solo beat. It wasn't in a match, but just man to man, he had him beat. He had him laid out. He beat him to a point where Solo could not physically stop Roman from taking the Ulafala and putting it back on. But who was the one to step up and save Solo again? Jacob. Now, one could say that that's him just doing his job very, very well. But is Jacob really the person that's supposed to be tribal chief? Or the new tribal chief? I mean, what do you think? Do you think the bloodline is in better hands of a Jacob Fatu or of a Solo Sikoa? Of a more brute force, brutal savagery, I hate using that word, but savagery in Jacob Fatu's rulership? Because we still don't know what all Jacob is capable of, like I mentioned before. And Solo's very, I don't know, Solo seems like he's trying to be. Roman never seemed like he was trying to be. This was just the character that he was. And so it's interesting to me to see where we're going to move forward in all of this. Because there has to be at some point some sort of evolution in Solo's character. Otherwise, because they've been saying for the longest time, we didn't want to bring Jacob in because he was going to overshadow Solo. Well, Jacob has overshadowed everyone that's not named Roman Reigns. And to be honest, moving forward, Jacob's going to overshadow everybody in the bloodline, including the Usos, including, well, the rumor is Sami Zayn, including, Hikuleo if he comes in, including Zilla Fatu if he comes in. So it seems to me the biggest threat to Roman's tribal chiefhood, if you will, is Jacob Fatu. It's not Solo Sikoa. Which brings me to my next point. Was Jimmy right? And in hindsight, was he justified for doing what he did to Jay? Now, I'm not talking about the entire feud that was Jimmy and Jay at WrestleMania. We all kind of know what that was, and We all kind of have our opinions on it, and we're not here to talk about that right now. What I'm talking about is the explanation, right? So Jimmy stated that the only reason why he cost Jay the championship and the role as tribal chief back at SummerSlam last year was because he didn't want Jay to become like Roman. And at first I was like, well, that's BS. That's a very sloppy way to go out. That's easy booking, as they say. But in hindsight, now that I've kind of seen how a lot of things have played out, what if he was right? Solo never showed an inkling of turning on his brothers when the Ula Fala wasn't involved. If he wasn't sent by the elders to protect Roman or protect the tribal chief, then I don't think there would have been a moment where he would have turned on Jimmy. But as soon as he took the claim of tribal chief and placed that Ula Fala on, no one was safe. Solo began to change. Solo was no longer this quiet, stoic figure that just stood in the background. He decided to take it amongst himself that he was the leader of the family and that he was going to rule by any means necessary. But he was going to justify it by saying, this is what the family needs. The family needs me to do this. Exactly as Roman did. And so Jimmy didn't want Jay to go down that road because he felt like he was going to lose his brother. He was able to see, because you remember, Jimmy came in and was like, I ain't with none of this tribal chief stuff. Jay was more or less beaten into submission. Admittedly by the use of his brother, because Roman did beat the brakes off Jay in order to kind of force Jimmy to be like, hey, bro, listen, I'm going to go ahead and join because he's smacking us both around. But Jimmy always questioned the tribal chief, even after Jay kind of was like, all right, I'm going to stand by your side. I'm going to acknowledge you. Jimmy was never really on board with the whole thing. And so my question, like I said, is Jimmy justified in believing that, hey, if you get a hold to the Ula Fala, it's going to corrupt you. It's going to change you. It is going to turn you into a monster, just like how it turned Joe or turned Roman into a monster. And that's not what I want. Now, like I said, the way they eventually told the story and them actually having a feud in the midst of all this has nothing really to do with my question. But it does make me wonder. It does make me, even do they mention that when Jimmy comes back? Because Jimmy's cleared. He is able to come back once they see fit. Paul has already kind of mentioned that he's going to come back. He kind of hinted that there might be a chance that he won't, but you're not going to have this bloodline story without Paul Heyman. You got Roman there. They put their hands on Paul. Paul's going to come back. When? We don't know. Paul's going to come back, though. You can't have the OG bloodline without Paul Heyman. And that's something else that's interesting. There is no wise man to Solo. So do we get that? There's so many different directions now that we kind of see that Roman is back. We can kind of look down the road and do all this, assumptions and kind of see where they're going to go with it. And I'm interested. I'm interested to see how do you keep Roman looking strong without the squashing of Jacob Fatu? And at the same time, how do you keep someone like Solo seeming important? Because right now, there's no one is buying Solo winning the championship from Cody. Solo still kind of feels like that behind the scenes guy. Like, yeah, if he get his hands on you, he can hurt you, but he's vulnerable. And we've seen him break. We've seen him fall. We haven't seen that from Jacob. And we rarely see that from Roman. So even though he's an enforcer, could Solo actually be the weakest link to the overall bloodline story because of his emotional state? There's an emotional situation that comes with Solo when it goes towards Roman. Solo did say, hey, listen, if Roman is able to take this Ula Fala from me, and he is the new tribal chief, and we will acknowledge him. So that was a cool little motivation and a wrinkle that he wasn't just this evil, gangster guy that just wanted to have a hostile takeover. He's really justified in his thought process of, no, Roman failed. Roman was not, he's shown that he is not capable of leading this family, and therefore I must do it. But the interesting thing there is, okay, well, why wouldn't you just have Roman fall in line? Why did you choose to attack him or say that he's not coming back or attack the wise man? You can say, oh, well, he attacked the wise man because Paul didn't acknowledge him. But your focus should be having your direct family acknowledge you. You didn't have your brothers acknowledge you. So at what point does Jay pop back up? Because Jay is a wild card here. He's not even on the same show. And Jay kind of excluded himself from the bloodline, with everything going on with the whole Roman situation. So at some point, we have to get that reunite. And then what does that look like? How does Roman go about righting his sins and saying, hey, I messed up, I'm sorry, but we need to get together and go fight your brother. We need to get together and go fight these new guys, because that one dude with them red locks, that one dude, Jacob, that dude with the same last name as y'all, no, we can't mess with him. Yeah, we got to figure something out with him. We got to shoot him or something, because no. You see what I'm saying? So I don't think, aside from Roman Reigns, I don't think there's anybody that's really felt like a unstoppable figure since Jacob. And that, to me, makes him arguably the most dangerous, most impactful player in this entire thing. We knew that Roman is Roman. He's already proven, he's already track record. He's been a main event guy for the past, decade plus, and has become arguably the greatest character, the greatest of all time in a lot of people's eyes, since becoming the tribal chief. So that we kind of know that once he comes back, it was going to be a problem. He was going to wreck shop. He was going to smack some people around. But with Jacob, we had no idea. We heard rumors, but you don't know how he's going to be packaged. And they've packaged him so well. And I feel like at some point, Solo's going to have to recognize that, why every time you not here, we can't do nothing. But when you show up, we up. Someone's going to have to bring that up. And there's going to be a chink in the armor of Solo. And I think that is the falsehood of his claim to the tribal chief. No one stood above Roman. No one was messing with Roman that was inside the bloodline. You couldn't touch him. However, this new bloodline, Solo doesn't even seem like the most dangerous guy in his own family, in his own, place, in his own group. So it's definitely a fascinating, from a character standpoint, it's definitely a fascinating thing to look at and kind of dissect. And even, like I said, with the whole Jimmy situation, the justification of, was he actually right in doing what he did? And do they bring that back up in the long run for the reconciliation of the Usos? How do we get there? And so, yeah, man, I wanted to jump on here and kind of give my thoughts on it, especially before we hit Bash at Berlin. I don't think Roman is actually going to be scheduled for the show as of right now. He's scheduled to come back September 13th on SmackDown, which I'm assuming is going to be to set up something for Bad Blood, because I feel like you got to have him and Solo lock up at Bad Blood. And I think it would even be cooler if we had Solo versus Roman at Bad Blood in tribal combat, and Solo actually wins. And that's what drives Roman to say, hey, listen, I need help. I need to go get my cousins. I need to get the band back together, because come November, come Survivor Series, we got to go to war. This guy claims he's the tribal chief. He's doing everything he can to take me out. I need my family back. So that's a little bit of a foreshadowing of what I kind of see coming down the pipeline, of the story that they're telling. But the way Paul is talking, we ain't seen nothing yet. So we don't know what could happen. We don't know how many more cousins that's gonna pop up. We don't know who's related to who. We don't know what the women are gonna eventually, have a say in all this. It's all up in the air. But I think that's the most fascinating part about the bloodline. And now that we're kind of back on track Even though Roman isn't there, we know that he's there, but he's not there. So we know that we're setting up for that down the road, and we're watching everything unfold. But I'm really paying attention to Jacob and how he moves and how he's reacting towards a lot of things that's happening in the storyline. I think he's, like I said, he's the person that everyone wants to keep their eyes on. We know what Roman is. We know what Solo is. We don't know what Jacob is. We don't know what this guy's capable of. We don't know what he's going to be coming with. So, yeah, man, it's. I know I keep saying it, but this Bloodline thing, it just keeps getting better and better. I feel like I keep coming on here talking about and making episodes about it, but hey, unfortunately, I won't say unfortunately, but right now that's the most important thing, in my opinion, in professional wrestling. And when you have something this monumental, it doesn't hurt when all of the outlets out here are talking about it, because it's showcasing the importance of it. It's it's almost like culture changing within the world of pro wrestling, right? So it deserves everyone's attention, in my opinion. But that's all I got today for you guys. I will be dropping my prediction episode for the All In 2024 show in Wembley. I will be watching that show, and I will be doing a follow-up review of that show as well. So make sure you guys keep a lookout for that. Leave a comment, and make sure you guys hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, so you make sure that you are notified whenever I'm dropping content just like this. And I got something coming up for you guys. I got a special guest who's going to be joining the show here in a week or so. So be on the lookout for that. I'm super excited. This is my guy. We're gonna have a super fun time. And I hope you guys enjoy that content as well. If you're listening to this on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, make sure you leave a review and let me know what you guys think. Let me know what type of content you want to see in the future, and I will see y'all down the road. And as always, be safe, be blessed, and be kind. Peace.